Attack on Titan Unbreakable is a new Quest-exclusive Attack on Titan VR game, and if you were to look through the VR YouTuber landscape, you'd think this early access game was almost AAA status. Now, I might rustle some jimmies with my opinions here, but before you smash that dislike, just hear me out with my thought process here. I recently saw a video by Mr. VR Voice on the toxic positivity of the VR YouTuber scene, and frankly, I kind of agree with a lot of what he says. I'll link his video, but I'll just kind of quickly go over the main points.
I've felt for a long time now that there is a major cognitive dissonance going on with how VR experiences are being portrayed by content creators versus what they actually turn out to be in play. It's a dissonance which I feel is slowly, insidiously, greatly damaging the perception of VR while gradually pushing users away. This profound disconnect between how average at best VR experiences are being presented and recklessly hailed as something outstanding by irresponsible creators, while perpetuating a toxically positive feedback loop that praises anything for merely existing in VR and condemns those who hold higher expectations and reasonably demand better, is not going to help push the industry to make meaningful progress. I think it's just excusing and enabling its continued stagnation and regression. Looking through the trend of VR content in recent years, how it's been titled and how it's been presented to viewers, versus what the reality actually results in, it is overwhelmingly content that is exaggerated, toxically positive, and ultimately disingenuous hype farming and borderline false advertising, or tries to skirt that potential accusation of false advertising by just showing a recording of gameplay and sounding excited on comms all the time.
He's not falling over! He's not falling over! He's not falling over! Woo! Okay, here we go. And around! He tried to catch me. He didn't do it. Slicing! Slicing! I think I did it. Whoa!
Any weaknesses, faults, or failures of design are rarely ever held to task, even if severely detrimental, and instead are usually pussyfooted around, or not mentioned at all, or, if impossible to ignore, after being highlighted, will then be downplayed with flaccidly timid statements like, "It can be janky," or "It isn't the best implementation you've seen," or, if they're feeling particularly bold, "I don't think this works very well." But you can be quite sure that anything which alludes to a fault in design will always be followed up with the blanket conclusion of, "But it can still be fun."
I'm having a really good time playing this game, and that isn't to say Attack on Titan Unbreakable doesn't have its problems. It does have problems, and I will talk about them throughout the video. But for an early access Quest game that costs $4.99, there is a ton of fun to be had here and a lot of replayability for people who love the source material. If you're a fan of Attack on Titan, you're gonna have a good time with this game. At least I would hope you're gonna have a good time with this game. I am having a good time with this game.
Another thing I want to make crystal clear is that I do not believe whatsoever, or am accusing any of the other VR content creators of deliberately contributing to the issue I'm talking about with genuine awareness of the larger consequences. Nor am I saying they have deliberate, conscious, sinister intent to deceive, exploit, or manipulate their viewerships. I really do not believe that.
So I hope that set the context of this review. Now, I don't typically like to review all the hot games that everyone else is playing, because I don't like feeling obligated just to jump on the hype train to cash in on what's hot. Plus, everyone else on their grandma's cat is already covering it, so I like to offer the niche of more obscure VR games that you don't really see as much everywhere else. However, I did do a video on the Attack on Titan VR fan game, so I figured it would serve as a good foil to compare this game with. I'm gonna score the games as I see fit in a totally subjective manner that's completely made up and doesn't really matter, so if you enjoy this game, don't feel bad, it's totally your opinion. Just think of this as a sort of quickly written on a napkin type scoring, just as a way to illustrate my thoughts. Also, note that all these games are pretty much early access or unfinished, so they're more or less on an even playing field, so I'm not gonna hold any punches back. Now right off the bat, the graphics are terrible. People like to joke the Quest graphics a lot, but a lot of games actually have pretty decent standalone graphics. This game isn't one of them. I mean, look at the pixelated skybox or those fruits and vegetables in that stand. The model itself for the Titans look good, but the texture is so low causing all this pixelation everywhere, and those animations are really stiff. I mean, what is this, 5 frames per second?
Pay attention. This is the part where you explain to me exactly what it is I'm looking at.
Well, Levi, I think we're looking at a -5 on our grading chart so far. And one of the devs of the PC VR fan game version recently told me they watched my last video and informed me that they have a new update to try, so I booted that up. Obviously the graphics are far superior, but some of the models like the Titans seem a bit off from their anime look. I'm gonna give it a +5 for the environment, but a -2 for the Titans. I will give them 1 point back though, because the named Titans actually do have pretty good models. Okay, but graphics aren't everything, so let's keep going. This kind of baffled me. We've established they can render the whole city, but the cutscenes are these windows into a 3D environment. And Armin is completely still, there's no animations. I feel like they ran into some performance issues and just backpedaled out of it by stylistically trying to go for a manga penguin look. Which makes no sense because later on they have cutscenes that aren't through a window at all and they encompass your whole vision. I'm gonna give them 3 points for having a story, but -1 point for going that route with it. Now the PC VR version doesn't have a story, but a single player experience is in progress, so I'll just leave it at a neutral 0 for now. Now another feature that seems like it was made out of quest limitation is how they have this world border that forces you into one location per mission. It should just be a free roam mode that lets you go anywhere for fun, or even just let you go anywhere in general. I'm gonna give them -1 point for that. One of the biggest pluses for the fan game is that the world is completely travelable. You can leave the city and venture off into the forest without any load screens. I'm gonna give them +1 for the open world, even if some parts are a bit bare. And for the quest version, I'm also gonna give a -1 for how annoying Armin is.
Our supplies are scarce, so we must secure weapons, gas, and other essentials. There should be supplies scattered around the district. You're out of blades? Time to go search for some. Broken blades won't do in battle. Change them for new ones. Titan sighting confirmed. Let's go look for new blades. Maybe there are some nearby. You need to find some new blades. Otherwise, you won't be able to fight. Your strategy is working. Nice going. Let's keep it up. Don't worry. Just stick to the mission. Look out! Stay away from the enemy. You've got this. It's too dangerous here. Get away from the Titan. Get back to the mission now. Damn. There's no time. We gotta move faster.
I really should have subbed and not dubbed in the beginning. It is cool that you can see the other scouts even though they don't really do much, so I'm gonna give +1 for that. I'm gonna give a +1 to the waifu score for Mikasa as well.
Back off. You're too close.
If we're being fair about waifus, the fan game version has pretty much all of them, so +5 to them for that. The last thing I wanted to touch on is the actual gameplay, including the ODM grappling mechanics. Aside from some gathering missions, most of the time you're just killing Titans for points.
Nice going. Let's keep it up.
Now the grappling system isn't the worst. It sort of has this like snap and pull type mechanic where you get pulled to the location you want, but for the Titans it snaps to several key body parts so you can chop them off. However, your swords break and you run out of gas like in the anime, so you have to recharge them and find more.
Oh no, you're out of blades. Let's go find new ones.
This is also a feature in the fan game, but they go a bit further by having a hunger meter where you have to om nom nom and some potatoes and bread, like the best girl to stay full. Unbreakable's ODM gear works pretty well from a gameplay standpoint, since it makes it easy to traverse and attack without having to get used to the physics of it. But for me, it sort of has this negative effect where it feels like it's almost a crutch auto-aim. Like there's no skill to it. Like you're just moving from point A to B constantly and just swiping when needed. Like, compared to the fan game, you actually have to use your momentum to travel around, and it moves more fluidly with how rope would actually swing a person around. I do feel as though while the latter's more realistic, it does take far more practice to learn, which can be both rewarding but a tad frustrating. I'm not super good at it, but I've seen other players online do some insane tricks that just wouldn't be possible in the Quest version. If I could have my way though, I would love a happy balance between the two like in Jet Island. I mean, just look how easy it is for me to do complicated movements, twisting and turning and manipulating my trajectory with my rocket boosts, much like the gas mechanic in the Attack on Titan games. So for ODM and gameplay, I'm going to give the Quest version 3 points for ease of use and 1 point for the staticness. And for the fan game, I'll give 1 point for ease of use, but 3 points for how rewarding it feels to master the skill. And if I was going to rate Jet Island, I'd give it a 10 for the movement alone. Now, one of the major selling points of the Quest is the lack of a need for a PC and its portability, so I'm going to give it an extra 5 bonus points. And while the PC VR version is pretty and way more feature-rich, like being actually able to turn into every named Titan or even summon the Rumbling, it is fairly janky at times, being a small indie dev fan game, so just to even out the rustiness, I'll -4 from it. Frankly, the Quest version has its own jank, but its score isn't doing so hot already, so I'll give it a pass since it's basically a mobile game and it's somewhat expected for the medium. And before I reveal the final score, which you can skip ahead to if you please, I'm going to quickly showcase the only other Attack on Titan VR experience that I'm aware of, which is really just an Unreal Engine fan game by Swami that's not actually a VR game. I'm technically using Praydog's Unreal Engine VR injector mod to make it work with VR. I'm going to give it a -5 for being in third person with no motion controls, but a +3 for the graphics, being pretty decent. I actually learned that you could actually make it in first person, so I guess I should give it a point back for that. I'm going to give it 2 points for having a city level and a forest level, but nothing beyond that. The ODM movement works pretty well, and it's a lot easier to handle on the keyboard in my opinion. The gameplay is pretty simple, you just go around killing titans, so for both of these things I'll just give it a +3. And you can't forget the waifu score. It doesn't have any of the Attack on Titan ladies, but it does have Marin Kitagawa from My Dress Up Darling, Lucy from Cyberpunk Edgerunners, Power from Chainsaw Man, and a shirtless Eren Yeager, so I'll give it a +4 for that. Oh, and apparently this game has multiplayer too? Not gonna award any points for it because it's pretty jank, but it is pretty cool that it has it. I'd like to see it in the VR versions. But I am gonna have to give it a -3 for not having a nuke you can launch like in the PC VR fan game.
Tactical nuke incoming!
So here's the final scores. We have the Quest hitting at a 6, the PC VR fan game hitting at a 10, and the Unreal Engine fan game at a meager 5. As you can see, we've scientifically established that Attack on Titan Unbreakable at its current state is pretty mid. Now listen, it's got good bones, but it could definitely be improved on a lot. It just comes across as super disappointing that yet again we get shown corporate pre-rendered filet mignon only to get hamburger meat once it actually arrives. I don't think it's beyond saving, but I don't think we should just be saying that it's amazing or that if you're a fan of it, at least you'll have fun. As if we fans of the show should just buy any merch for the sake of it because we can look past all the faults just to have some sort of Attack on Titan experience in general. I'm not holding the fan games to any sort of pedestal either. If you check out my past video on it, you'll see how many bugs and quirks I encountered in the game. I just want to review these things as I see them in reality and not try to sugarcoat it, because I'm just a huge fan of the series and I want to see the best Attack on Titan VR game is ever made. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Attack on Titan Unbreakable. I know there were some strong opinions on here, so let me know your thoughts. Am I completely off base and sipping on some haterade? Or what did you think of the game? Now, before I end this, you might have been wondering how I filmed all these parts where I'm talking on the camera. It was actually all done within VRChat, and one of the worlds actually had its own ODM mechanics. I didn't want to include it since it's less of a game comparatively, but if you're an Attack on Titan fan, it's definitely worth checking out. But yeah, that's it. Space Goat out.